Where you are right now in your life is quite literally a collection of all the decisions and beliefs of who you are right now as a person. And you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm a terrible person, right? And then at the same time, I invite you, if you are, asking yourself this question, which I did heavily, is also, okay, what is not working here? What is not serving me anymore? What needs to change, right? What is environmentally what can change? Yes, like what's out here, but also like what's inside here that really needs, because that's where it starts, essentially. That's where it all starts, is inside here. And making those decisions to change your trajectory if you're not liking what you are seeing right now.
Today's guest is Sarita Buer, a manifestation coach and host of Back to Here with Sarita, the new manifesting paradigm podcast. Through her signature manifestation program, the Bliss Method, she helps women manifest money and freedom with ease. Sarita went through her own deep self-love journey after quitting her corporate job of 15 years, ending her 8-year relationship, filing bankruptcy, and healing from alcohol dependency. It was using the power of manifestation to transform her life after these heartbreaking events that inspired her to become a manifestation coach. Welcome, Sarita.
Thank you so much, Anita, for having me. And I know my podcast is quite the mouthful.
I should like to be asking you all about that later.
Thank you.
So, after reading that out, can you possibly pick what is one of the most courageous things you've done? You've done several just reading your bio.
Yes, I would say kind of starting the whole trajectory of that transformation was really the commencement of acknowledging that the path that I was on was not really aligned for me. And this was years after being like doing the things that I was conditioned to believe that I needed, which was like a very, very stable corporate job with a 401k and health benefits and all that. And so I would say that leaving the corporate life after 15 years was the commencement of this journey that I've been on, which has been very courageous. So one thing after another, but I would say it started there when I left corporate about, now it's been about 20 some years that 15 years I was in it. And it's been about 4 years since 4 or 5 years since I left.
Wow. Long time. I guess, you've got the security of a good, well-paid job and everything and just giving it all up. So, yeah, I can imagine. So, as you said, that's what inspired you to become a manifestation coach. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So actually, that was the beginning of the whole courageous act and journey. So starting with leaving the corporate life and then realizing that that was just not aligned for me. I know a lot of entrepreneurs will say, oh, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was little. I always inspired to be an entrepreneur. Not myself. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. My partner at the time actually had been an entrepreneur, and I had been in relationship and friendship with a handful of other entrepreneurs, but it wasn't something that I necessarily aspired to be. I'm just more of the I choose my own path and I want to do my own thing kind of person. So it made sense that I fell into the entrepreneurship role. And so leaving corporate, like I said, was just the start of that. And then after leaving, just trying to figure things out. And I literally had no plan B. And so I really had to depend on myself, as in trusting the process of like what it was that was supposed to be unfolded, and also get really clear on what it was that I desired to create. It was almost like I had this like second chance in life where I was like, okay, well, if I don't want this very structured life, I need to structure my life myself. So how do I actually do that? And it was through just the goal setting, which I kind of intertwine goal setting and manifestation alongside each other because it really is getting very intentional about like how you
Mm,
want to create the things that you want to experience in your life instead of just being at the whim of like whatever life throws at you. Granted, that's still fun and you get to learn a lot, but also we are a co-creator of our reality. So it was as though I kind of had the second chance, like, okay, now that I've left this very foundational practice, now it's kind of a little chaotic. How do I even start, creating a life that's more intentionally aligned with who I am as a person? So
mhm.
it was using those tools of goal setting and manifestation and being very intentional that helped me really create the life that I live now.
Wow. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
Absolutely. Just to go back, you ended up an 8-year relationship. I mean, how did that come about?
That was about, I would say, 2 years after
Mhm.
I ended my corporate life. So it was like relationship after that. And so it was one relationship with a job, relationship after
Mm,
that. And so it occurred during my end of my corporate life ended in 2019. So that was April 2019. And then we got into a year later, got into shutdown. If you remember, like the world literally
mhm,
shut down 2020. April, that summer was just we were in the thick of it. And it was during that time because I was working from home and doing some freelance work and then also trying to build a business as well. And then my partner at the time had lost his job. And so, of course, like many people, we were very confined into one little space.
mm,
And so, what was being, I should say, swept under the rug or ignored in our relationship, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, was definitely amplified during that time when we were in such close quarters. And it was interesting because I had already known, my intuition had already known that this relationship wasn't aligned for me long term. But it was through that time really being like confined in the space together that brought that up to light. And I was still in denial. And I was actually going through a group coaching program, a very healing group coaching program that allowed me to go a little bit deeper and realize that that relationship was not for me anymore. And so, upon realization, and this
mm,
often happens, is we have these light bulb moments. And even though I am a very act now, think later person, it took me from the moment of realization almost 6 months to actually act on it. So, anybody that's listening when it comes to like the light bulb moment, if you like a job or a relationship or whatever, it's okay not to act right in that moment because sometimes we
mhm,
need some time to marinate and what does this mean? Like, what do I do? How do I do this? And just kind of figuring things out. And so, yes, upon realization, it was about 6 months later that I did end that relationship. And so essentially, I had to start all over again after a breakup. If anybody's ever
wow.
gone through that, it's pretty tumultuous and not a lot of people talk about that. And again, I wasn't full-time employed and working, like having a full income
Mhm,
myself. I was very dependent on my significant other. So it was really literally starting over. And I do remember I had probably about like 200 some dollars in my pocket in my bank account, I would say, after I broke off that relationship. So essentially, it was literally starting from ground zero.
gosh, absolutely. So what was starting over with only $200 to your name, like after bankruptcy?
Right. It was I'm reflecting on now, like it's a little funny because it was like I started that momentum, right? I left the
Mm,
corporate job, I ended the relationship. Okay, what's next, Sarita? So now it's filing bankruptcy. And for anybody that's filed bankruptcy, it is a very challenging process to go through, like legally, number one, and then also two, emotionally. I don't really
mm,
feel like there's so much support out there for the shame that someone would feel, one person would feel for going through the process. I had to work through, and luckily at the time, I entered into another program that really supported me with my money relationship. It
Mhm.
was something that I did on my own because I felt like, okay, well, here I am with only 200 some dollars in my pocket. I depended on my significant other a lot more than I acknowledged, even in the relationship. And
Mhm.
so stepping away from that and realizing the patterns of behavior that I'd had for so long in regards to my relationship with money, in regards to the way I related to money, how I handled money, like all these different things, was a basically an accumulation. And my present situation was that I had to file bankruptcy. And so
Wow.
going through this healing process, right? Not only of being heartbroken, but also realizing, oh my gosh, Sarita, like your relationship to your finances and money is very similar to that relationship that you had with your significant other or, even yourself. And
Mhm.
so starting over again with the $200 and going through bankruptcy, again, there was just a lot to unpack there. And I have to say that what was coming forth a lot was this feeling of regret and shame for feeling like I was a failure, feeling like I was a failure at love, feeling like I was a failure at money. And so, really doing the deep level work to unpack all that and love myself through the process was definitely something that I'm really grateful I went through. And then also,
Mhm.
it was very challenging.
I can only imagine, absolutely. And the thing is, I like the way you did say, you started this whole projection and
Yeah.
now it's one after the other, one after the other. Sometimes, what we ask for, we definitely get it in abundance,
Yes, we do. We do.
whether we realize it or
Isn't
not at
that
the time.
that is so true. Mhm.
Because, like, I mean, you overcome alcohol dependency as well. So that must be a difficult time as well. That couldn't have been easy with everything else that was going on.
Yes, that came forth. I didn't even realize that that was something that was even a part of my life until it got pointed out to me.
Mhm.
And of course, that was from an outside source. So that was one, somebody had pointed that out to me. And then also the acknowledgement after going through like a spiritual kind of awakening and realizing this was something that I had done. And so looking back again, as we do when we get out of relationships, we reflect back and think about things like, oh, I wish I'd done this different, or how could I have approached this different? And so one of the things that came forth for me was realizing that the alcohol dependency really started the more stressed out that I got.
Mm,
So when I got into corporate about mid 20s, it was a few years after that that I started to lean on more alcohol. And I have to say the employment locations where I was actually working, they had the mentality of work hard, play hard. We would
mhm,
work really
mhm,
hard at work, and then many of us would go out afterwards and go to happy hour and have a good time. I worked in insurance, so it's like there was a lot of schmoozing going on. So there was a lot of social activities that
mhm,
were revolving around alcohol. And realizing that the way that I was living my life, which again, like I mentioned at the beginning, was very unaligned with me and my authenticity. I'm the type of person that likes to do my own thing and I like to be a creative as well. So it makes sense. I have a podcast and like all these other things that I'm now doing authentically in my life. But at that time was way back burner, right? And so in order to make myself feel better, I would use alcohol to just numb out
mhm.
the emotions and the feelings. And I didn't realize that it became such a crutch where it would become such a conditioning that, oh, let me have that glass of wine, let me have that, cocktail in the afternoon, where it'd be like, I've earned it, I've worked really hard, I put a lot of effort into it, now I'm in a relationship, now I have, my significant other's children to worry about, and myself and the job and him, and I just need that, I need that wine on a Sunday. So it became such a dependent part of my life. And then after I split away, I still maintained that uh, habit. And it wasn't
Mhm.
to the degree maybe that it was before, because I wasn't as maybe stressed out in the same way, but it definitely continued with me. And so it was a hard pattern to break. I would say out of all of those, that was the hardest pattern to break from.
Wow. And I can understand how easily it becomes a way of life. Like you say, you work hard, you
Yes.
play hard. It's the culture now, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
so much like it's part of the job, so to speak. You have to socialize. Everyone's going out, and almost if you don't go, it's as if, well, what's the matter with you?
exactly.
You know, you don't want to be singled out either. I can totally understand that. Yeah, I'm a teetotal. I gave up several years ago, and I have the opposite. People say, "What's the matter with you? Why aren't you drinking?" And they said, "Oh, you can just have one." I said, "I don't drink." You know,
Good for
then
you.
yeah, and I do get that. So yeah, I think it's so much the norm these days. But a lot of my colleagues and friends are actually giving up alcohol. So it's changing. The ways are changing anyway. But
Thank
you know,
goodness. It's a
yeah.
liberating feeling too. It's a liberating feeling to, again, it's not necessarily like the alcohol itself. That's kind of
Mhm,
more the manifestation of like the symptoms and the desires of just feeling like you need to have something in order to feel better about yourself or
mhm,
feel a
mhm,
certain way. I even find that with like shopping, for example, if someone who's not an alcohol like doesn't drink alcohol here on the,
mhm,
listening to this podcast, maybe even shopping, we all have these like little dependency things that we do, and it's just recognizing how much power that thing has on you, because you can definitely do the things that you love, and I'm not knocking by any
mhm,
means like anybody that desires to have a cocktail or a glass of wine or
mhm.
something.
Absolutely.
Again, what I think is the most important thing is all about the intentionality behind it. And that was the part I think that I'm trying to bring home here, is that I was living a path that was so unintentional. It was just kind of like,
Mm,
just like you were saying, all right, let's go. This was the culture. Let's go play. Let's go have a good time. And so I'm
mhm,
just very susceptible to that. I'm not thinking on my own. I'm not really thinking about my future and like how it's like impacting me. Here I'm in this relationship that, I'm just kind of at the whim of like whatever's going on there. Like, and realizing, I think the defining moment that I asked myself, and I realized it was a such larger question. Kind of going back to the first question you asked me, like, what was that? What was like leaving, corporate?
mhm,
And the question I remember asking myself sitting in my cubicle, and I think I was about to be 39 years old. And I was sitting there one day, and a lot of people had left. It was kind of quiet office. And I just remember this like really very distinct voice said, Sarita, is this really what you want to be doing like into your 40s? And at the time, I think because I was sitting in my cubicle, I was thinking it was like, oh, this job, right? But now reflecting back on that several years, I realized that big question was like, no, do you really want to be giving away your power? Do you really want to be
mm.
living the life that's not intentional? Do you really want to just be kind of a feather in the wind going wherever instead of really constructing something with intention and out of like love for yourself?
And I think that's so important, love for yourself, like you say, being in an alignment, and it's
Hmm.
recognizing that you're actually not.
Right.
I think a lot of people, they're doing the job, they're doing whatever it takes to get from A to B, and it's actually, are you happy anymore? It may have been a nice time when it started, but are you actually happy anymore? And it's just reassessing, do I align with this anymore? And it's a hard truth to actually look at as well. It can be difficult, absolutely challenging.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a very hard truth, just looking
Mm,
at my life and
mm,
realizing that it's an accumulation of all the
mm,
decisions that I had made. Where you are right now in your life is quite literally a collection of all the decisions and beliefs of who you are right now as a person. And you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself and be like, "Oh my gosh,
mm,
like I'm a terrible person," right? And then at the same time, I invite you, if you are, asking yourself this question, which I did heavily, is also, okay, what is not working here? What is not serving me anymore? What
Mhm.
needs to change, right? What is environmentally what can change? Yes, like what's out here, but also like what's inside here that really needs, because that's where it starts essentially. That's where it all starts, is inside here, and making those decisions to change your trajectory if you're not liking what you are seeing right now.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, what did you do? And that goes nicely onto my next question. What did you do this time to create the lifestyle you are now living?
Yes. So the lifestyle I'm living now is very much more in congruency with who I am authentically as a person. So, one of the other things that I didn't mention was after leaving my corporate job and breaking off my relationship, going through bankruptcy, and then literally laying down the foundation to have a more stable life, right? Because after breakup, it's very essential to take care of yourself. You were worried about other people and other things and stuff. And so it was just this automatic, like, time to take care of Sarita, which I wasn't so accustomed to. So that was number one, the most awkward thing that I
Mhm.
embrace, but also something that I now love. I've learned to love. When we're so conditioned to do something different, it's very awkward to do something else. So, taking care of everybody else, right? And then all of a sudden being in a position to take care of myself, that was number one, definitely, in creating a more aligned life, taking care of my needs and my wants. And one of those was, okay, how can I construct a life that is in alignment with my beliefs? And one of
Mhm.
the things that I knew that for a while, this was the one thing I've known for some time, is that freedom is very, very important to me.
Mhm.
And freedom for you, Anita, may mean something completely different for me, right? So, freedom
Absolutely.
for me is being able to go wherever I want to and kind of explore and meet new people and travel and all the things. And so one of the first thoughts that came to mind was, okay, I want to be able to work from anywhere,
Mm.
essentially, right? I want to be able to take my laptop, take my computer, and be able to work from anywhere. How do I construct a life that is like that? And so it was getting really clear, number one, on what that actually looked like. Because
Absolutely.
with clarity, like, okay, am I packing up all my stuff and moving to Bali, or like what, how does that really look like?
Yeah.
Right. And so constructing my life very intentionally around that, and being able to take the things that I want with me. The other thing too is I kind of saw myself like having this like um, talk show type of thing, like a podcast. At the time, podcasts weren't really that big like that. So this was again 4 years ago. Like, yeah, they were happening, but they're not as popular as they
Mhm.
are now. And so just really like learning how to put that into play and creating that and putting the momentum into that. Okay, so that's one part. Being able to work from anywhere, getting my health in order. So just these different moving parts in order to create a life that I'm much more in alignment with. And that's where I am now, right? And again, it's not just luck of the draw. Some people are catching me now and being like, wow, she's living this lifestyle where she's literally packing up her car and just driving around and just living like wherever she wants to. And they're catching me at this stage of my life, but they didn't see those 4 years when I was
Mm.
contemplating and desiring and visualizing, creating vision boards and getting intentional and doing my affirmations and having a better relationship with money so I can actually go and do these types of things. So it's very important again, that we get very clear on what we want. And so that's what I did, was get very clear on what that vision will look like. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly the way that I, was looking, because that's
Mhm.
room for the excitement of life and, God, source, universe coming in being like, well, you wanted it this way, we're going to create some room for some more expansion and possibility there. Um, so yeah, it was just getting really clear and intentional and having a clear vision and having very aligned energy in that. And the biggest one, like I opened up, was just really trusting that process.
Mhm. And I think it is a case of absolutely a trust in the process because we resist. How many times do we resist? And then afterwards, somehow the universe has a way of aligning us with what's supposed to be anyway. And sometimes, I speak for myself. Why didn't I just listen and go with it instead of going through whatever I had to beforehand?
Yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah. That's called human stubbornness. I mean, that's, I'll raise my hand. I'm one of those people big time. I
mm,
look like I'm real easygoing and even keel, but I would say like the biggest lesson that I've learned in this life so far has been letting go, surrendering, and trusting the process because I'm a recovering controller. I controlled
mm,
a lot of my life. I mean, and again, that's not authentically who I am. It's a deconditioning, right? I learned being in control, and we learn
yes.
to be in control because we're too scared about getting hurt or rejected or
Mm,
things not working out the way that we want them to. And so naturally as humans, we control as much as we can. And we are stubborn and resistant to any type of release because we're
mm,
so scared. And I mean, I'm one of those people, 111%. I've had to learn through a lot of trial and error that letting
mhm.
go is the best thing, and it is also the hardest thing to do.
Absolutely. I can echo that. Absolutely. Tell me more about the bliss method. You help women manifest money and freedom with ease. Now, who doesn't want to know more about that?
Yes, so that's my group coaching program that has become such a gift to the people that really, really acknowledge that they are where I was, right?
Mhm,
Where it's the realization that, and maybe not even the realization, but just the desire to have something be a little bit different. And so, kind of going, back to my podcast, part of the tagline is the new manifesting paradigm. And
mhm,
so, this really emulates my life. I was explaining how and sharing with you how for so long I was living a life that was just very hustle grind, controlling. The outcomes
mhm,
were just not as I wanted them to. And I'm not saying like I wasn't enjoying my life because I was. Like I had lots of friends and I had lots of things happening that were good for me. But it was like deep down inside me thinking like, darn it, I am meant for so much more than this. I'm meant for more than doing insurance work. I'm meant for more than, making this type of salary and having to report to a job and all these other things, right? I'm not knocking corporate by any means. Uh, but it just was not meant for me. And so this new math or the old manifesting paradigm basically is thinking that you have to really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into
mhm,
the outcome or your desired life, right? And this belief is starting to fall away very slowly. There's a huge, huge influx of people wanting to learn more about mindfulness and meditation and like health. People's health is so much more important. We're having conversations about mental wellness and like just all these things, right? And it's because there's so many people that are burnt out, and
mhm,
burnout is something that's been happening for a long time. And that was me. And so that's the belief that you have to really push your efforts, like good old hard grit effort into manifesting, aka creating the life that you want. And so this new manifesting paradigm, which is the bliss method, is learning to decondition yourself, just like I did, from the belief that you actually have to put in a lot of freaking effort
mhm.
and lean into the new belief, the new manifesting paradigm. And this is the way that our world is going, is learning that your energy and your frequency is going to impact on a much higher level than good old fashioned hard grit.
Yeah.
And yes, grit and determination and perseverance are really, really great things to have. And also, you can have those when you're actually vibrating at a frequency that is where you're not coming from a scarcity, which is what I was. doing. And so this bliss method essentially teaches you to reverse that thinking and to start really embracing a life where you are so much more dependent on your essence of who you are, which really opens you up to what we were just talking about, which is trusting the process and letting go and allowing things to happen, right? And setting the intentions and being in alignment with the things that you actually really desire in your life instead of hustling and grinding your way to success.
I think that's so beautifully put. Thank you.
So thank you.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. And it's so true. It's about unlearning sometimes, if not most of the time. It's not about learning, it's unlearning, because we've got these patterns that have been handed down to us, or we've just been friends, family. There are patterns that we just follow because they were already there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. So I know we touched a little bit on this, your podcast, but you are the host of the Back to Here with Sarita podcast. Tell me more about it and who's it for.
Yes. My podcast, a lot of people ask me this who are podcast managers and people that are interested.
Mm,
What inspired you to start your podcast?
mm,
And very selfishly, I started it for myself. I didn't start it for the intention, really necessarily, of attempting to get clients and things like that. It has
mhm,
turned into that. But I started it because I was getting a little bit fed up with social media and its short form content. I love short form content when you're just trying to, consume things in a very short format. But sometimes it's really nice to be able to put in your earbuds, clean your house, and listen to a podcast or
yeah.
audiobook, right? Like a long, and you don't have to keep touching your phone every like 30 seconds to try to get to a new video. And so it was my way of really sharing my journey in regards to all the things that had happened to me in those 3.5, almost 4 years now. I started the podcast, I think it's in its third year. So I did start it pretty much at the point where I realized, okay, let's start sharing what's been happening with me
Mhm,
over the last year as I've literally started to recreate my life. And who the podcast is for somebody that is desiring or wanting to have more support and inspiration when it comes to their spiritual journey.
mhm,
And spirituality, I'm glad that we are starting to evolve as humans to know that spirituality doesn't have to look a certain way for
mhm,
everybody, that even somebody that is a CEO of a company, a very forward thinking company, can be very, very spiritual, right? They're not necessarily what we would maybe think is spiritual. Because oftentimes we still kind of have this vision of someone who's spiritual as like a yogi, from a
yeah.
certain place in the world and like is all very like, gentle speaker and stuff. But spirituality can be so much different for so many different people. And so it is to support you on your spiritual and healing and self love journey, to inspire you and then also give you tools and resources that will support you along that process way. Because oftentimes we get a little overwhelmed with so many of the things that are being thrown at us by social media and books. And I mean, shoot, if you go into a bookstore, the self help and spiritual right department is just can be
Mhm,
overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, where do I start? So I've just tried to put everything that I've learned thus far in episodes. And it's such a great way to consume content because you can either watch it on YouTube or you can just listen to it on Apple or Spotify. And like I said, the episodes are consumable in the way that they're not going to be overwhelming with information. And I'm the type of person that just likes getting to the point of like what it is that we're talking about with my particular episodes. I think that's really important.
oh, that's fantastic. Love that. Absolutely love that.
Thank
And
you.
what a better way. So I know you did mention this, and it is one of my questions. So I'm going to ask you it anyway. What is one of the most important lessons you've learned so far over your life?
That's a good one. I would say, going back to what I shared before, one of the first things that I learned from this whole journey that I've been on is to be authentically aligned with myself. And
Mm,
so, how is it that we do that? Because that sounds great and wonderful and everything, but how exactly do we actually like get to that point where we're authentically aligned with ourselves? And I would say it starts with really understanding where you are in that moment. And one of the things I was reflecting on right before we started talking is the realization of your responsibility, my responsibility, right? All of our responsibilities in the life that we have created for ourselves, right? The responsibility that we've taken in that and not being a victim to our circumstances. And then also the deep self love, which is recognizing, yes, that we are responsible for what we create, but then also having this deep sense of self forgiveness and self love for, okay, maybe I haven't done the things that I essentially have wanted to do, but because I have the power, because I have the wherewithal, because I love myself enough, I know that I can change the trajectory. I know that I can change the story. I can change the narrative. And so that takes a lot of self-love. And I would say a little deeper than that for somebody that's like, okay, well, how does that work? Is one of the first things I wish that I had learned right after breakup, bankruptcy, and all the things was learning how to become safe within my body, safe within myself, safe
mm,
within my own presence. Right. And so that's kind of the that's really the essence of my podcast, back to here, like back to this center moment, back to the present moment, acknowledging where you are, your breath, your power, your agency, your sovereignty. Like, okay, like
mm.
I'm present here. And from there, yes, then you can carry forward. But to answer your question in short form, definitely like the biggest lessons would be the lesson of self forgiveness and self compassion and self love.
Absolutely wonderful. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
What resources do you recommend, tools, daily steps to anyone that wants to start to manifest to transform their life? It's not going to happen overnight, but start. What would you say?
Right. That's a really great question. And just reverting back to what I was saying,
Mm,
if you are feeling like your life is really chaotic, because I've been there, believe me, I've had so many moving parts where it's just like, how do I find myself in the
mhm,
different craziness, chaotic moments that are happening around me, right? Kids, significant other, like job, like all the things, right? And I would say definitely getting that sense of groundedness in yourself and safety within yourself and feeling abundant within yourself first, right? Because again, it all starts with you. We are the
mm,
creators of our reality. The new manifesting paradigm essentially is, and this isn't something that I'm making up, like this is actually happening in our world, is that
mm,
people are realizing that our frequency is going to be our new currency, is our currency. And so learning how to funnel in the energy to ourselves is going to help us to amplify like those things on the outside. So definitely one of the tools I would say is any self-love practices that you can create for yourself. That's going to be really important because we know the other side of that is burnout. We've all experienced burnout and we
mhm,
know the symptoms. A lot of us know, especially us women, know our symptoms of when burnout is about to happen.
mm,
Aches and pains, migraines, crankiness, like whatever it is, right? We
mhm.
have these things that can happen and we know that like burnout's upon us, right? So it's just an indicator to us at that time needing uh it's an opportunity, I should say, to put in a lot more self-love practices for yourself, whatever that looks like for you, because it looks can look different. Journaling, taking a bath, like going on a walk, like having moments for yourself. Very, very important. So I would say that would be one really big takeaway from this. And then also, when you have a moment, taking the time to just kind of reflect on where you are. I always like using, and this isn't my original analogy, but somebody shared this with me,
Mhm.
is just think about a GPS. When we
Mm.
go into our car or we look on our phone and we put, where we want to go, right? I want to go to this restaurant to eat dinner. Well, how does the GPS know where to take us if the GPS doesn't know where we currently are at this moment?
Mhm.
And so it's very important, okay, for us to figure out where it is we want to go with our journey, where what life we want to create. It's very important for us to assess and evaluate, where are you right now? Where is your GPS right now? And I said, again, the accumulation of all the things that you beliefs and thoughts and stuff, that's a very overwhelming thing. But just if you have time, take a moment to just kind of evaluate, where am I right now in my life? And where is it that I'm going? Where is it that I would desire to go? So those two things I would definitely recommend when it comes to just kind of commencing your journey with manifesting.
That's absolutely wonderful. And what a great analogy because of the sat nav. It's absolutely
Yeah.
true. We know where we want to go, but do we actually ever address where actually are we right now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, where can the listeners find you online, your podcast? What's your website, Sarita?
Yes. My website is Sarita Wellness. So that's Saritawellness. And that is also my handle on my social medias. So that's on Instagram, that's on TikTok, and that is on YouTube. So the YouTube is where my podcast is as well. If you want to watch video podcasts, I know I like to have, depending on my mood, I like watching things sometimes. Sometimes I like listening.
Mm.
So it's for anybody, just anybody that has wants to watch or to listen. And then for listening, you can type in "Back to Here with Sarita" on Spotify or Apple, or you can just go to my website and listen to it there, and then choose your way of listening. Um, for the podcast. So, yeah, that's where you can see me. And I'm very open to conversing with people. If you have any questions, anything that is, manifestation, self love, healing related, I'm very open to that. So feel free to send me a DM.
That's fantastic. And all the links will be in the show notes. So, do please connect and it'll be a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So, thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today and doing the work on yourself to have got you where you are today. I'd really like to acknowledge you for the difference you're making. Thank you. Sarita Buer.
Thank you so much, Anita, for having me. It's always such a pleasure to be able to share my journey and my experiences. And I am very hopeful that, all the things that I've been through shed some light on some areas in your listeners' lives, and knowing that they're not alone in this process and this journey called human life.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So, we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
Ooh, courage. This is such a great question for me because I've gone through so much. And then also, what has been coming forth in the last, I would say, like 9 months or so, has been the warrior energy. And so when I think of warrior, I think of courage. When I think of courage, I think of a warrior. And so a warrior is really going to uh, fight for what they believe in. And
Mm.
so to me, courage is quite literally being a warrior for what you stand for.
Mm.
So the question that I constantly have been asking myself has been, Sarita, what do you stand for? Who do you stand for? What do you stand for? And so that's what I believe courage is. Courage is the ability to stand up and go after and fight for what you stand for.